on a sunlit afternoon, before an imposing estate with grand steps and gleaming windows, a frail elderly woman sat shivering on the stone driveway. Her voice faltered as she begged for mercy, her face etched with sorrow, while strands of her silvery hair drifted to the ground like autumn leaves. Beside her stood a younger woman, elegantly dressed, her laughter sharp and mocking as she gripped a pair of scissors, cutting through the old woman's thinning hair. What no one expected was that within that mansion lived a man of immense wealth, a man admired by all. Yet in that moment, his world was about to crumble, a reality that money could not fix. If you believe in the power of kindness, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Compassion Chronicles. Your support helps us share more stories that move and inspire. The elderly woman was named Evelyn Forsyth, the mother of the prosperous and influential Theodore Forsyth. Though Theodore had built a financial empire and appeared in magazines with his polished appearance and confident smile, Evelyn had lived a life of simplicity. She was known in her neighborhood as a kind soul who offered tea to passing strangers and comfort to anyone in need. Her pride was her son, whom she had raised alone after the untimely death of her husband when Theodore was still young. But as age caught up with her, Evelyn's strength had diminished. Her steps had slowed, her hands trembled as she held onto her cane, and her once beautiful hair had grown sparse and fragile. She had become vulnerable, and though Theodore's fortune could have sheltered her fully, he had trusted that his fiancée, Clara Hart, would care for her mother while he was away. Clara, introduced as a refined woman of grace, was someone Theodore believed could stand by his side with dignity. However, that afternoon, behind the walls of their private estate, Clara revealed a different side. Instead of offering kindness, she sneered at Evelyn's frailty. "You look absurd with this hair," Clara mocked, pushing Evelyn into a chair. Evelyn's hands shook as she pleaded quietly, but Clara merely laughed, tightening her grip on the scissors. Snip after snip, Clara cut, while Evelyn sobbed and begged her to stop. The estate's front yard stretched out silent, save for the heart-wrenching sound of Evelyn's cries. The sun blazed down harshly, casting long shadows across the stone path. Every tear that fell from Evelyn's eyes glittered in the sunlight, making her suffering even more poignant. Meanwhile, Clara's laughter only intensified, feeding off her helplessness. At that moment, Theodore returned home from a business meeting earlier than expected. His polished shoes clicked on the driveway as he walked hurriedly, his mind filled with work. Then he heard it, his mother's voice, fragile and broken, calling out in distress. It was a sound he hadn't heard in years, not since he was a child and she wept for him after his father's passing. The memory shook him to his core and his heart raced. He froze for a moment, then rushed forward, eyes searching frantically. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. His mother, the woman who had always been his rock, was sitting on the cold ground, her face streaked with tears, her hair scattered around her like fallen petals. Clara loomed over her, grinning with cruel amusement. For a split second, Theodore felt as if the ground beneath him had disappeared. His chest tightened and anger surged through him. He dropped his briefcase, the sound echoing across the yard like a thunderclap. Clara's laughter faltered when she saw him, but the damage was already done. Evelyn, weak and trembling, lifted her eyes to her son, her voice barely a whisper, calling out to him as though he were her last hope. Theodore rushed to her side, kneeling next to her, his voice thick with emotion. As he held her trembling hands, he realized that all the wealth in the world meant nothing if he couldn't protect the woman who had given everything for him. Clara tried to justify herself, her voice dripping with excuses, but Theodore's gaze silenced her. He saw past her polished persona, past the charming facade she had presented to the world. In that moment, he understood that she was no partner. She was a betrayer of the love he had cherished most. Without a word, he snatched the scissors from her hand and threw them aside, then focused all his attention on his mother. He wrapped his arms around her, whispering promises that she would never again be harmed or abandoned. The days that followed were filled with a mix of sorrow and healing. Though deeply shaken, Evelyn found solace in her son's unwavering devotion. Theodore cancelled meetings, delayed business trips, and spent each day by her side. For the first time in years, the once absent businessman was not in high-rise offices or luxury hotels, but at home, cooking simple meals for his mother, gently brushing her remaining hair, and telling her she was his most treasured possession. The mansion, once filled with Clara's insincere laughter, became a sanctuary of genuine love and healing. As for Clara, she faded from Theodore's life entirely. Her betrayal left a scar, but it also taught him a valuable lesson. Wealth may draw people to you, But it is in times of hardship that their true nature is revealed. Over time, Evelyn's smile began to return. The neighbors often saw her sitting in the garden again, her silver hair neatly tied with a ribbon, her eyes brighter than they had been in years. She would walk hand in hand with Theodore, softly telling him how proud she was of the man he had become, not because of his fortune or success, but because of his character and kindness. Theodore, too, saw life through a new lens. He realized that the greatest empire he could ever build was not one of wealth, but one of love, respect, and protection for those who mattered most. The story of Evelyn and Theodore serves as a powerful reminder that cruelty, no matter how small, leaves scars that wealth cannot heal. But kindness, true selfless kindness, has the power to mend even the deepest wounds. For Theodore, his mother's tears marked a turning point that reshaped his entire life. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to Compassion Chronicles. Your support helps us spread more emotional stories that remind us all of the strength found in kindness. And before you leave, tell us in the comments, what does kindness mean to you when it matters most?